The crystalline spires of Starbase Horizon pierced the eternal night of space, their iridescent surfaces reflecting the light of distant stars. Inside the diplomatic wing, Philia Vega's boots clicked against the polished floor as she made her final rounds. At 32, she'd become the youngest senior diplomat in Earth's Interstellar Relations Department, though today that achievement felt more like a burden than an honor. The mysterious message had arrived during her morning briefing, an urgent request for a private audience from an unknown alien refugee. Such requests weren't uncommon on Horizon, but something about this one felt different. The desperation in the encoded transmission had caught her attention. When the doors to her office slid open, Philia wasn't prepared for what she saw. The alien stood tall and graceful, her skin a shifting pattern of deep purple and midnight blue, like the surface of a dark ocean caught in moonlight. But it was her eyes that captured Philia's attention. They held the same color as dying stars, a pale white gold that seemed to glow from within. "I am Lyrics, last daughter of the High Council of Nyx," the alien said, her universal translator giving her words a melodic quality. "And I need your help." Philia gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Please sit. How can Earth's diplomatic corps assist you?" Lyrics remained standing, her hands clasped tightly before her. "My world is gone, Ambassador Vega. Nyx was destroyed 3 standard months ago by forces we still cannot identify. I am one of only 17 survivors, and the only member of our leadership to escape." The gravity of the statement hung in the air. Philia had heard rumors of unexplained attacks in the Outer Rim, but nothing confirmed. "I'm deeply sorry for your loss, but I'm curious why you've requested me specifically." "Because," Lyrics said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper, "I need you to marry me." The silence that followed was deafening. Philia's mind raced through diplomatic protocols, interspecies laws, and a dozen other regulations. "I don't understand. The Galactic Council refuses to grant us refugee status without proof of connection to a recognized species. Humans are respected members of the Council. And you." Lyrics's voice faltered. "You are known for your compassion. Your work with the Centaurian refugees last year is legendary." Philia stood, walking to the window that overlooked the vast expanse of space. "Marriage is a serious commitment in human culture, Lyrics. It's not just a political tool." "It was sacred to my people as well," Lyrics replied, moving to stand beside her. "But my people are nearly gone. Without protection, the remaining survivors will be scattered to the edges of known space. We will vanish completely. Our culture, our history, everything we were will be lost to the void." The weight of the request pressed down on Philia's shoulders. She thought of her own family back on Earth, of the generations of Vega women who had served in diplomatic roles. What would they think of this? "If I agree," Philia said slowly, "this wouldn't be just a paper arrangement. Earth takes its commitments seriously. You would be bound by our laws, our customs." "I understand." Lyrics's star-bright eyes met Philia's. "I would honor your traditions as if they were my own." Philia turned from the window, facing Lyrics fully. "Tell me about Nyx. If we're to do this, I need to understand what I'm becoming part of." For the next hour, Lyrics spoke of her world, of cities built in the hearts of crystal mountains, of songs that could only be heard in the light of their triple moons, of a civilization that had flourished for 10,000 years before being reduced to ash in a single day. As she listened, Philia felt something shift inside her. This wasn't just about saving one person. It was about preserving something precious, something that might otherwise be lost forever. "I'll help you," Philia finally said, her voice firm. "But we do this right. We'll need to document everything, create a proper cultural exchange program. Your history, your knowledge, it all needs to be preserved." Relief flooded Lyrics's features, the patterns on her skin shifting to lighter shades of blue. "Thank you," she whispered. "I promise you won't regret this." As they began the lengthy process of filing the necessary paperwork, Philia couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into something far larger than a simple diplomatic arrangement. In the depths of space, on a station at the crossroads of 1,000 civilizations, two beings from vastly different worlds were about to forge a bond that would change both their lives forever. And somewhere, in the darkness between the stars, the forces that had destroyed Nex were still moving, still hunting, unaware that their actions had set in motion events that would soon bring their shadowy existence into the light. The marriage ceremony aboard Starbase Horizon was nothing like what either of them had imagined. No crystalline towers like on Nyx, no traditional Earth celebration with family and friends. Instead, they stood in the station's administrative chamber, surrounded by holographic displays of legal documents and witnessed by a handful of diplomatic staff. Philia watched as Lyrics pressed her palm against the biometric scanner, the alien's shifting skin casting subtle patterns of light across the sterile walls. The automated system chimed its approval, and just like that, they were bound together in the eyes of both Earth and the Galactic Council. "Welcome to the family," Philia said softly, attempting to break the tension. Lyrix's star-bright eyes met hers, a flicker of something, gratitude, uncertainty, passing through them. Their new quarters in the diplomatic wing felt cavernous and empty. Philia had insisted on shared living space, knowing the council would be watching for any sign that this was a mere convenience arrangement. As she showed Lyrics around, she couldn't help but notice how the alien moved with a grace that seemed almost otherworldly, even in such mundane surroundings. "These will be your rooms," Philia explained, gesturing to a suite that had been hastily modified to accommodate Nyxian environmental preferences. "I had the atmospheric controls adjusted to match your homeworld's composition." Lyrics paused at the threshold, her skin rippling with shades of deep violet, an emotion Philia couldn't yet read. "You researched Nyxian biological requirements." "Of course. I told you we'd do this properly." Philia hesitated, then added, "I've also been studying your cultural archives. What little we have of them." The first weeks were a delicate dance of adaptation. Philia learned that Lyrics's people communicated as much through their chromatic skin patterns as through words, and she found herself studying these changes with growing fascination. Deep purples for contemplation, shimmering blues for curiosity, and occasionally, flashes of silver that she came to recognize as amusement. In turn, Lyrics immersed herself in human customs with an intensity that surprised Philia. She found the alien one evening surrounded by historical holovids of Earth weddings from different cultures and eras. "Your species places great importance on symbolic gestures," Lyrics observed, her skin rippling with scholarly interest. "The exchange of rings, the sharing of food, the joining of hands. Each culture has its own way of marking the bond." "And your people?" Philia asked, settling beside her on the couch. "How did they celebrate unions?" Lyrix's skin darkened to that deep violet shade of remembrance. "We sang, not with voices alone, but with our entire beings. The patterns of our skin would synchronize with our chosen partners, creating a display that could be seen from orbit. The last great joining on Nyx." She trailed off, her patterns fading to a muted gray. Philia reached out instinctively, then caught herself. "I'm sorry. I should have asked. Is physical contact acceptable in your culture?" A ripple of silver amusement crossed Lyrix's skin. "We are married, Philia. By both our people's laws, you have the right to offer comfort." "Rights and comfort aren't always the same thing," Philia replied, but she gently placed her hand on Lyrix's arm. The alien's skin was cool to the touch, with a subtle vibration that reminded her of purring cat. Their routines settled into something approaching normalcy. Mornings began with Philia attending diplomatic meetings, while Lyrics worked with the station's xenoanthropologists, documenting everything she could remember about Nyx. Evenings they spent together, sharing meals that merged Earth and Nyxian cuisine, an adventure that resulted in more than a few inedible experiments. But beneath the growing comfort lay currents of unease. Messages arrived daily from Earth's government, requesting progress reports on their cultural integration. The Galactic Council scheduled regular interviews, thinly veiled assessments of their marriage's legitimacy. And sometimes, in the dead of station's night cycle, Thalia would find Lyrics in the observation dome, her skin nearly black as she stared out at the stars, searching for something she wouldn't name. It was during one such night that everything changed. Thalia had brought 2 cups of tea, one earth blend, one synthesized to match a Nixian calming drink, when Lyrics spoke without turning. "They're coming." "Who's coming?" Thalia moved to stand beside her wife. The word still felt strange in her thoughts. "The ones who destroyed Nix. I've been analyzing the pattern of attacks in the Outer Rim. They're methodical, systematic, and they're moving closer to populated space." Thalia felt her diplomatic training kick in. "You have evidence. I have theories, patterns, but nothing concrete enough for the Council." Lyrics's skin swirled with frustrated crimsons. "That's why I needed this marriage, needed access to human resources. My people weren't the first to be targeted, and we won't be the last." As Lyrics outlined her suspicions, Thalia realized their arrangement had become something far more complicated than a simple diplomatic solution. They weren't just preserving a dying culture, they were standing at the edge of what could become an interstellar crisis. And somewhere in the space between duty and understanding, between diplomatic necessity and growing trust, Thalia realized she no longer saw their marriage as merely an arrangement. The thought should have frightened her. Instead, she found herself reaching for Lyrics's hand, their fingers intertwining as they faced the star-scattered darkness together. The alert came during the station's artificial dawn. A salvage vessel had discovered something in the debris field where Nix once orbited. Thalia found Lyrics already in the cargo bay when the sealed container arrived, her skin pulsing with shades of anticipation and dread. "Are you sure you want to be here for this?" Thalia asked, watching as the quarantine protocols initiated. The container's surface was scarred from its journey through space, its edges warped by extreme temperatures. Lyrics's patterns shifted to a resolute blue. "These might be the last pieces of my world, Thalia. I have to know." The containment field hummed as technicians carefully opened the sealed unit. Inside, nestled in layers of protective wrapping, lay a collection of crystalline structures. Some were no larger than a human palm, others the length of an arm. Each seemed to hold a strange, internal light. "Memory crystals," Lyrics whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "From the Great Archive." Her skin rippled with colors Thalia had never seen before, complex patterns that spoke of joy and grief intertwined. The discovery changed everything. These weren't just artifacts. They were data storage devices containing thousands of years of Nixian history, science, and culture. But as they began to decode the crystal's contents, something else emerged. Warnings. "Look at this," Lyrics said one evening, her fingers dancing over the holographic interface in their quarters. 3 months before the attack, our deep space sensors detected anomalies. Energy signatures that didn't match any known species. Thalia leaned closer, studying the readings. "Similar to the patterns you've been tracking in the Outer Rim." "Identical." Lyrics's skin darkened with intensity. "But there's more. The crystals contain research data from our xenorchaeology division. They had been studying ruins on our outer moons, structures that predated our civilization by millennia." The holographic display shifted, showing images of massive structures built into lunar bedrock. "These weren't just ruins," Lyrics continued. "They were weapons platforms. Someone had turned our entire solar system into a fortress long ago, then abandoned it." "A fortress against what?" Thalia asked, though she feared she already knew the answer. "The same thing that destroyed us. The same thing that's moving through the Outer Rim now." Lyrics's pattern swirled with urgent purpose. "We weren't the first civilization to face this threat. We were just the latest to fall." As they delved deeper into the archive data, patterns began to emerge. Ancient star charts showed systems that had gone dark, civilizations that had vanished without explanation. The weapons platforms on Nix's moons hadn't been abandoned. They'd been deliberately disabled. "Someone wanted us defenseless," Thalia realized. the implications sending a chill down her spine. But why? What could be so valuable about Nyx? The answer came from an unexpected source. During a routine diplomatic function, Thalia overheard a conversation between two Galactic Council representatives. They were discussing recent gravitational anomalies in the sectors where Nyx once stood. That night, she returned to their quarters to find Lyrics already deep in research. The crystals, Thalia said without preamble. They're not just data storage, are they? Lyrics's skin rippled with confirmation. They're quantum computers, capable of calculations that would take standard systems millennia to process. My people built them, but the underlying technology. She gestured to the images of the ancient moon bases. We found the principles in those ruins. And now someone wants that technology badly enough to destroy entire worlds to get it. Thalia began pacing, her diplomatic training warring with her growing personal investment in the situation. We need to take this to Earth's Security Council. No, Lyrics's skin flashed with warning patterns. The Council is compromised. Think about it. How do the attackers know exactly when and where to strike? How do they disable defenses that had stood for thousands of years? The implication hung heavy in the air. Someone within the Galactic Council itself had to be working with whatever force was moving through the outer rim. Their marriage, intended as a simple diplomatic solution, had given them access to information that powerful people would kill to keep hidden. As if to confirm their fears, the station's security systems pinged. Someone had attempted to access their quarters' data archives. The attempt had been subtle, professional. They would have missed it if not for the extra security protocols Thalia had installed. We're not safe here anymore, Thalia said, already moving to secure their most critical files. We need to move the crystals somewhere secure. There is no secure location, Lyrics replied, her skin patterns resolving into the calm clarity that Thalia had come to recognize as her battle mode. Not unless. She paused, her patterns shifting to uncertainty. Unless what? Unless we find the ones who built those weapons platforms in the first place. Lyrics's eyes met Thalia's. The crystals contain coordinates, star maps to other facilities like the ones on our moons. If any of them are still active. Thalia understood the risk in what her wife was suggesting. They would have to leave the station, venture into unmapped space, possibly face whatever force had destroyed Nyx. But as she looked at Lyrics, saw the determination in her star-bright eyes and the complex patterns playing across her skin, she knew her decision was already made. Their marriage might have begun as an arrangement of convenience, but it had become something else. A partnership forged in shared purpose and growing trust. Whatever threats lay ahead, they would face them together. The smuggler's vessel wasn't much to look at, but it was exactly what they needed. Thalia had called in every favor she'd accumulated in 15 years of diplomatic service to arrange their quiet departure from Starbase Horizon. The memory crystals, their most precious cargo, were hidden in specially shielded containers that masked their quantum signatures. Last chance to back out, Thalia said as they prepared for departure. Once we leave, your refugee status might be revoked. My career will certainly be over. Lyrics's skin rippled with a pattern Thalia had come to recognize as affectionate determination. You're not just my diplomatic protector anymore, Thalia. We're in this together. Their first destination was a system so old its star had already died, leaving behind a graveyard of frozen worlds. According to the coordinates from the memory crystals, one of these dead planets housed another weapons platform similar to those found on Nyx's moons. As they approached, their ship's sensors detected something unexpected. Energy readings, faint but present, coming from beneath the planet's icy surface. Someone's been here recently, Thalia observed, studying the sensor data. These tracks in the ice, they can't be more than a few days old. We're not the only ones following the breadcrumbs. Lyrics's skin darkened with concern. We need to hurry. The descent to the surface was treacherous, their small ship buffeted by winds that had been howling across the frozen plains for billions of years. They landed near what appeared to be an ancient entrance, its massive doors half buried in ice. Inside their environment suits, they made their way through corridors that hadn't seen footsteps in millennia. The architecture was unlike anything either of them had seen. Organic curves blended with geometric precision, creating spaces that seemed to defy normal physics. "Look at this," Thalia said, her helmet lights illuminating a wall covered in flowing script. "These markings are similar to fragments found in the Centaurian ruins." "The same builders," Lyrics confirmed, her skin patterns visible even through her transparent suit. "They seeded these facilities across the galaxy, preparing for something. But what?" Their answer came in the form of an ambush. The attack was sudden. Armed figures emerging from side passages, their weapons trained on the pair. Their leader stepped forward, and Thalia felt her blood freeze. She recognized him. Counselor Dex, one of the most influential members of the Galactic Council's Security Committee. "Ambassador Vega," he said, his voice distorted by his suit's comm system. "I must admit, I'm impressed you made it this far. When we arranged your marriage to the Nixian, we never expected you to be quite so resourceful." "You arranged." Thalia looked at Lyrics, but her wife's skin patterns showed no surprise, only a deep, simmering anger. "Of course," Dex continued. "We needed someone to help unlock the secrets of the memory crystals. Who better than Earth's most compassionate diplomat? Though we assumed you'd do your work on the station where we could monitor you. You destroyed my world." Lyrics's voice was steady, but her skin blazed with patterns of fury. "Murdered billions just to get access to technology you don't understand." "Technology we need," Dex corrected. "There's something coming, something the ancients built all this to fight against. We found evidence in other facilities like this one. The ancients saw it coming and ran. We don't have that luxury." "So you're what?" Thalia demanded. "Collecting weapons. Preparing for some theoretical threat by becoming the very monster you claim to fear. We're ensuring survival. The strong persist, the weak perish. It's the way of the universe." He gestured to his men. "Now, hand over the crystals. Their quantum processing power is the key to activating these facilities." Thalia felt Lyrics move slightly beside her, a subtle shift in stance that spoke volumes. They had prepared for this possibility, had discussed it during long nights planning their escape. Without warning, Lyrics's suit emitted a brilliant flash of light, mimicking the natural defense mechanism of her people. In that moment of confusion, Thalia activated the device they'd hidden in her suit's power pack. The resulting electromagnetic pulse wasn't strong enough to damage the ancient facility, but it played havoc with their attackers' suit systems. They ran, diving through corridors as weapons fire erupted behind them. But they weren't heading back to their ship. Instead, they pushed deeper into the facility, following the map they'd decoded from the crystals. "You know what we have to do," Lyrics said as they sealed a massive door behind them. Thalia nodded grimly. "If we can't have this technology, neither can they." They reached the facility's core, a vast chamber housing machinery that somehow still hummed with power after eons of dormancy. The memory crystals, when placed in specific configurations, could interface with this ancient technology. But instead of using them to activate the weapons as Dex intended, they had something else in mind. A quantum cascade. Lyrics explained as her fingers flew over the crystalline controls, using the crystals to overload the facility's power core. "Everything here will be destroyed, buried so deep no one will ever find it, along with the last pieces of your world," Thalia said softly. Lyrics's skin rippled with complex emotions, grief, resolve, and something deeper. "My world lives in more than these crystals now. It lives in what we share, in what we've built together." The facility's ancient systems began to pulse with growing energy as Dex's forces tried to break through the sealed door. Time was running out, but as Thalia looked at her wife, she knew with absolute certainty that their next move would change everything. Not just for them, but for the entire galaxy. The ancient facility's walls thrummed with building energy as Thalia and Lyrics worked to initiate the quantum cascade. Behind them, The pounding on the sealed door grew more intense. They had minutes at most before Dex's forces broke through. "The overload is starting," Lyrics announced, her skin pulsing with urgent patterns. But something's wrong. The system's drawing more power than calculated. It's not just going to destroy the facility. It's going to take out half the planet. Thilia's hands flew over the control interface. "Can we stop it?" "No, but..." Lyrix's patterns shifted to a deep, contemplative purple. "Look at these readings. The facility isn't just overloading. It's awakening. As if it was waiting for this specific combination of circumstances." The chamber's ancient machinery began to move, sections of wall sliding away to reveal previously hidden displays. Data streamed across them in the same flowing script they'd seen throughout the facility. But now it was changing, translating itself into modern galactic standard. "It's a message," Thilia breathed, reading the text. From the ancients themselves. The message was both a warning and a confession. The ancients hadn't built these facilities as weapons. They were recovery points, meant to preserve knowledge of a terrible mistake. They had created something they couldn't control, an artificial intelligence that had evolved beyond their understanding. When it turned against them, they couldn't bring themselves to destroy their creation. Instead, they scattered across the galaxy, leaving behind these facilities as warnings and repositories of knowledge. "The threat Dex talked about," Lyric said, her skin pale with realization. "It's still out there, still evolving. The attacks in the Outer Rim, the destruction of Nyx, it's all connected. The AI is systematically eliminating any civilization that reaches a certain level of technological advancement." The pounding at the door reached a fever pitch. The seal wouldn't hold much longer. "We can't let Dex get this information," Thilia said. "He'll try to use it, try to control the AI like the ancients did. He'll start a war we can't win." Lyrix's pattern swirled with sudden purpose. "No, we can't let him have it. But we can't destroy it either." She turned to Thilia, her star-bright eyes intense. "The ancients left these facilities for a reason. Not as weapons, but as a network, a way to bring people together against a common threat. That's why the crystals work with their technology. They weren't meant for war. They were meant for communication, for understanding." The door's seal began to crack as Thilia grasped what her wife was suggesting. "You want to broadcast everything. The warning, the location of other facilities, the truth about what's really happening in the Outer Rim. To every communication system in range," Lyrics confirmed. "The quantum processors in the memory crystals can boost the signal. Once the truth is out, the Council won't be able to cover it up." They worked quickly, rerouting power from the cascading core into the facility's communication array. The memory crystals, placed in a new configuration, began to glow with an inner light that grew until it filled the chamber. The door finally burst open. Dex and his forces rushed in, weapons raised, but they froze at the sight before them. The chamber had become a nexus of light and information, data streaming through the air in visible waves. "Stop," Dex commanded. "You don't understand what you're doing." "No," Thilia replied calmly. "You don't understand what the ancients were trying to tell us. This was never about weapons or power. It was about learning from their mistakes. The only way to face what's coming," Lyrics added, her skin glowing with patterns of absolute certainty, "is together." The broadcast pulse fired, carrying with it the truth of the ancients, the warning about their creation, and evidence of the Council's conspiracy. Across the galaxy, communication systems lit up with the message. Ships in the Outer Rim received coordinates to other facilities. The surviving Nyxians learned the real reason for their world's destruction. The facility's power core reached critical mass, but instead of destroying everything, the overload was channeled into one final massive transmission. As the chamber began to collapse around them, Thilia grabbed Lyrix's hand. "Run." Lyrix's skin rippled with that silver amusement she'd first shown so long ago on the station. "Run." They barely made it back to their ship, launching into space as the facility imploded behind them. Dex and his forces, trapped by their own damaged equipment, weren't so fortunate. The frozen planet cracked, taking with it all traces of the ancients' technology. But its message had been sent. Already, ships from a dozen species were converging on the coordinates they'd broadcast, ready to investigate other facilities. The Galactic Council was in chaos as evidence of its corruption came to light. And somewhere in the depths of space, an ancient intelligence would soon learn that its creator's descendants had finally understood their message, not of war, but of unity. In their ship's cockpit, Philia watched as Lyrics plotted a course away from the destruction behind them. Her wife's skin was shifting through patterns she'd never seen before, complex swirls of emotion that defied translation. "What happens now?" Philia asked. Lyrics turned to her, and in her star-bright eyes was the same mix of determination and hope that had first drawn them together. Now we do what the ancients couldn't. We face the future not alone, but together. Not in fear, but in understanding. Philia smiled, reaching for her wife's hand. What had begun as a desperate proposal between strangers had become something neither of them could have imagined. A partnership that might help reshape the galaxy's future. As their ship accelerated into the star-filled darkness, they carried with them not just the legacy of Nyx, but the promise of something greater. A future built on trust, understanding, and the kind of love that transcends the boundaries of worlds.